Hi YouTube and welcome back to my channel. Today is day 19 of Vlogmas. Wow, I've actually made it 19 days so far, yay. So as my video title says, this video will contain Star Wars The Last Jedi spoilers because there's no way I'm going to be able to talk about a movie and not give spoilers because the way my brain works, I've mentioned this before, tangents and everything else. I guarantee you I would put a spoiler in here accidentally if I tried not to, so I'm just not going to try. So if you haven't seen Star Wars The Last Jedi yet, please don't come back and watch this video until you have seen it, because like I said, I guarantee there will be spoilers. So I saw the movie today. I took myself out to see the movie today, and I just thought I would talk about my impressions and reactions and things, because I've seen a lot of I've tried to avoid spoilers of the movie, but I have seen that like some people hate it, some people loved it, everything else. I think on Rotten Tomatoes it has a really high rating of 93%, and overall, just in general, you know, did I like the movie? Yes. Although, to be perfectly honest, it's very few movies are ones that I will say that I didn't like. And as long as I'm relatively well entertained, I generally don't dislike movies. Unless someone drags me to a movie that I know that I'm not gonna like to begin with. I try to avoid going to movies that I know I'm not gonna like, just because it's generally a concept or a genre that I just don't enjoy. Obviously, I enjoy science fiction, I enjoy fantasy. Star Wars is kind of a science fantasy, space opera type of thing, and so I enjoy those kind of things. I love Star Trek, I love all those kind of movies. So going into it, I knew that I probably wasn't going to hate it. Same is true for pretty much every Star Wars movie. Even the prequels. I mean, okay, I will agree that the prequels were probably not up to the same level of quality as the rest of the movies, but I still enjoyed them. I could have done without Jar Jar Binks, just like everyone else, but I wasn't vehemently in hatred of him. He was out of place. He was goofy, and yeah, the dialect and everything that he had. I can see where a lot of people would see that was almost racist in a way. So there were definitely issues with those movies, but just stepping back and just watching them, I was entertained and I did enjoy them. So I wouldn't list them as my favorite movies of all time, but I certainly wouldn't say that I hated them either. So be that as it may. But, so, The Last Jedi, I went into it without, I usually, what I do is I go into a movie without any expectations. I try to ignore the hype. I see the hype, I see the trailers, everything else, and I know, just because I make videos myself, I know how people can cut and edit and move things around and give certain impressions about things, and so you're kind of expecting certain things from Rey or Kylo or any of the other characters, and it turns out that they're actually talking to somebody completely different in the actual movie than they are in the trailer, and so there were certain assumptions made ahead of time that I think people were expecting because of how they cut the trailers. And I think they cut the trailers in a way like, oh, we're gonna surprise people, and so people had certain expectations going into the movie, and they didn't come out in that manner. I know that there were a couple of scenes where Rey was actually talking to Luke Skywalker, where in the trailer it made it look like she was talking to Kylo. So that's kind of interesting. And I did like how they kind of balanced, like, so Rey and Kylo were kind of like mentally linked by Snoke, but that Rey and Kylo, while they're of similar levels of power in terms of their ability to use the Force, that Rey represents the light and Kylo represents the dark. That they're kind of opposite sides of the same coin in many ways. And I actually really kind of like the scene where Kylo gets rid of Snoke and starts to fight back to back with Rey. And I think that, you know, at the end of that scene, it could have gone either way. Either Kylo could have gone back to being Ben Solo and gone with Rey and become the spark to light the fire and start the rebellion, or in the case of the way the movie went, is that he said, no, I'm the Supreme Leader. But of course putting the blame on Rey on the death of Snoke, even though he's the one who did it. Although, to be perfectly honest, Rey probably could have as well, just because she is of a similar level of power. She just hasn't had as much training as Kylo, and I think that was one advantage that he had, is that he had been trained by Snoke, and so he was able to overcome Snoke in a way that Rey wasn't yet, just because she hadn't had that level of training. I mean, Luke gave her a little bit of training, but just barely. He really wasn't Rey's Yoda in any way. I did like seeing Yoda back, and I did like seeing that it looked very much like they were using the Yoda Muppet instead of CGI in this case. I mean, it could have been CGI, in which case really good CGI, but it looked closer to the original Muppet that they were using back in the Empire Strikes Back. So, and I love the fact that Frank Oz is still doing the voice. I'm glad that he's still around to bring his very unique voice to the character and everything. But in general, yeah, I like the movie. I can see why some fans are disappointed with how they played things out with Finn and Rose. I like the character of Rose, and you do get a nice little flavor of kind of an interracial relationship there, but it's pairing him with a female when everyone wanted him to be paired with Poe, with Finn and Poe, as a gay couple. And I think a lot of people think that J.J. Abrams missed the mark on including a same-sex or same-gender romance or couple in the movie, and just kind of throwing Rose in the middle of it, because I know that Finn also seems to care about about Rey, at least as a close friend, if nothing else. I mean, he was worried about Rey. First thing he asks when he wakes up is like, "Where's Rey? What happened to Rey?" And he goes in and gives her a big old hug when she comes back and everything. So obviously he cares about her to a degree. Whether he cares about her as a sister or not, it's hard to say. But there's definitely something between them in terms of caring about each other. But then all of a sudden they throw this Rose character in with this quick little peck on the lips from her, and the fact that she cares about him and stuff. And it's cute and everything. And if they hadn't had the whole connection with him and Poe in the first movie, I wouldn't have minded the introduction of Rose and having her with Finn in the movie. But I guess I kind of was hoping that something more would develop between Finn and Poe as well. And the fact that they really kept the two almost deliberately separated in the movie. Almost like, I think they decided, you know what, the fans are too rabid about this relationship. Let's keep them separated so they stop getting these notions. And I think that's a little bit unfair to the fans. That I guess they didn't want to do the fan service of like the fans want this to happen, and therefore they went in a completely different direction with it. But that would be probably the only thing in the movie that I found at all disappointing was that. I think Finn and Rose really worked well together and could have been really good friends. Throwing the romance element into it and not leaving the whole thing with Finn and Poe more ambiguous, because, you know, at the very least, like, they didn't necessarily have to play to the fan service and give the fans a relationship between Finn and Poe. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that, but then to deliberately shove Rose into the middle of this instead, I think, like, hey, you know, I think they're trying to really dissuade people from having this idea of Finn and Poe as a relationship, and they could have just kind of kept it ambiguous and left it to the fans' imagination, and they didn't. So I think that's one thing where they did kind of miss the mark on, and I do agree with some of the complaints on that. But I liked how, you know, Rey's character developed in the movie, and I liked the farewell that Luke and Leia had together. I thought that was poignant in everything, especially considering what happened with Carrie Fisher after she finished filming her scenes for the movie. So that was, I don't know, overall I really liked the movie. Yeah, at the end of the day. Are there a few issues with it? Is there such a thing as an absolutely perfect movie? I'm sure some people out there have examples of movies that they think are absolutely perfect, but to be perfectly honest, I think that you can nitpick pretty much any movie out there, and everyone does. You know, even some of my favorites. I mean, I mentioned some of my favorite movies. Actually, one of the ones I forgot to mention was Dirty Dancing. Because I was so focused on all the sci-fi and fantasy movies I've always enjoyed, but Dirty Dancing was one that when I was a teenager, I absolutely loved that movie. And I've seen it several hundred times, probably. The cassette, the VHS cassette that I had, I definitely wore the poor thing out. Let me put it that way. But that was a good movie. I liked that movie. And I actually have enjoyed some, I mentioned some other rom-coms and things that I enjoyed, but I did forget to mention that one. But yeah, in general I do prefer sci-fi and fantasy and stuff, and there really aren't any good rom-coms out there anymore that I've noticed. At least none that I've been drawn to seeing, but I don't think they're really making a lot of good romantic comedies right now. Too much effort is focused on things like the superheroes and the Star Wars and everything else, which I'm perfectly happy with as well. So that's fine by me. All right, that's about everything I wanted to mention about the movie in terms of different things that I enjoyed, and the one problem with you know, throwing Rose in the middle of, you know, throwing Rose at Finn as a romantic connection. I think that they're doing a disservice to both of those characters by doing that. You know, maybe if they had done that at the end of the third movie, where perhaps the two of them would have had more time to have developed a relationship, because here, I mean, they were thrown together for all of a few days at most, and all of a sudden she's in love with him and kissing him, and I don't know, it felt forced. That's the only thing that I really didn't like about the movies, because that part felt forced. And, you know, if they had just left things a little bit more ambiguous, I think fans would have been a lot happier with that. So, alright, that's my 2 cents on Star Wars The Last Jedi. Thank you for joining me today, and until tomorrow, take care. Bye-bye.